So my name is Rashana Niké, and today we're going to be talking about tea and herbs, something that I am extremely passionate about. Before we start, I just want to give everyone a handout so you can follow along with my presentation here. Excuse me, Shannon.
Sorry.
So I think we can pass out a handout for everyone and a bag. That would be awesome. And then a bowl as well. So while you're doing that, I'll pass out the bowls. I'm going to have you guys make your own tea blends today. There might be some sanitizer too, so I'll give you guys some sanitizer. Let's start. They all have the same thing in it, so that's fine. Great. So while she's doing that, just give you our next So we're going to start off with a quote that I love about tea, and it's just something simple from Randolph, who is a tea enthusiast. That I have studied a lot of her techniques and blends that she uses to create different herbal remedies, tinctures, my own custom blends. I got a lot of them from Arlene Gray. And the quote is pretty simple. It says, tea is to the body as music is to the soul. So just kind of let that resonate a little bit for me. And then we have a brief history of tea. I won't go into all of it. It is it's a lot, but it just kind of breaks down the origin of tea and how tea became so popular, not only in just this country, but around the world. There's a myth that goes something like there was a Chinese emperor, I believe it was, that used to like to drink hot water after a long day's work, and he was sitting under a tree, and some of the leaves from the tree fell into his cup of boiling water, and that's how tea was birthed. That's something how the myth goes. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but I just think it's pretty interesting. So I gave you this in the handout, in the printout that I gave you, so you can look at it. It talks a little bit about the Boston Tea Party as well, which I thought was very interesting, because at one time tea was illegal in this country, and there was actually a lot of controversy surrounding tea. So I'm just going to give you a little brief history of myself and why I am into the teas and why I'm so passionate about the herbs. So I come from a country called Jamaica, a small island in the Caribbean. My family is from a very rural part of Jamaica, up in the mountains, on the countryside, where nature is how they basically survive on a day-to-day basis. They grow their own foods, they use nature for their herbal remedies, they use nature for pretty much everything that they need to sustain their lives. So I've always had tea as a part of my life ever since I was born. I can remember my great-grandmother, when I was sick or anybody in the family was sick, she always had a concoction on the stove ready to give us to remedy whatever we were dealing with. She also would have bottles of herbs being distilled in rum under her bed at any given moment. If you were sick or not feeling well, she would give you a shot of that or rub you down with this concoction. I had no clue what was in this bottle, but all I know is it made me feel better the next day. So I just want to share that with you guys. So this is something that has been passed down to me for generations, and I'm sure her parents and grandparents passed these remedies down to her. So first thing we're going to do is talk about the most popular teas that you guys all may be familiar with. And those are the black, the green, the white, and the oolong teas. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with those teas. You probably had them on several different occasions. Every single tea, real tea, comes from the Camellia sinensis plant, and it's going to be one species of that green, that black, that white, or that oolong tea. There are other herbs that are used now that are more popular when creating tea, such as chamomile, hibiscus, lavender, peppermint. Some of these herbs I brought with you today, and some of them I have available on my website. I have a small business where I sell custom tea blends and also loose leaf herbs. And so today we're not going to blend the popular teas, because I feel like you guys have probably had that so much already in your life. We're going to do a little bit something different with the herbs today that does not correlate to the 4 most popular teas that are consumed worldwide. We're going to go a little bit different from that. And so many of you may know that tea originated in Asia, as I briefly explained before, with the emperor that was sitting under the tree and the leaves fell in his cup. But other countries are also known for their teas, and a lot of teas and herbs originate in Africa, in India, even some right here in America. And when you're sourcing a real good quality tea, you want to source that tea from the area where it originates from. That's where you're going to get the highest quality, because the environment helps to give the teas the nutrients and the minerals that we love about the tea, and the flavor. So if you're going to get a green tea from here in the US, it's not going to be as high quality a green tea as you might get from Asia or India, because their ecosystem just grows a better quality herb. So I just want that to be known. You can try to grow it in your garden, that's fine, but our climate is not going to produce that same quality tea just because of our environment is completely different. And that goes back to saying that in Jamaica, a lot of the herbs that they consumed, especially where my family's from on the countryside, have high medicinal value because of the ecosystem that is there. Those herbs just tend to thrive in those areas and produce, it takes in the minerals from that ecosystem, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes any sense. So I gave you a little information about the 4 most popular teas. The first one, we are going to talk a little bit just so that you have a little bit of knowledge about the teas that you're probably used to consuming, is the black tea. So the reason why the tea is black, first of all, it starts off as a green leaf, but because of oxidation, it becomes carbonized, and that's what gives it its rich, dark color. And in that oxidation process, a lot of the minerals and nutrients are being birthed into that herb, which is why it has the flavor that it has, which is why it has the color that it has. And it's very, very popular because of the way it's so abundant in the regions that it grows. So that's just a little bit about black tea. And it also has very powerful medicinal properties to it as well, which is another reason why a lot of people love black tea so much. Some of the health benefits, which I think are pretty important to note, are the properties that help to reduce any heart disease. So if you're someone that has heart issues, cardiovascular issues, black tea is something that you might want to incorporate a little bit more into your daily life. And some of I'll just go back for a second, some of the teas that you might be familiar with that have black tea in them are the English breakfast and the Earl Grey teas. So I'm sure many of you have consumed it. It's very popular here in the States as well. So green tea, as many of you may know, is very popular in green tea is very popular in Asian culture, which is one of the reasons why Asians tend to have less ailments than we suffer from here. They're very strong advocates for green tea. If you go to any given Asian market, even right here in Randolph, as you know, we have many Vietnamese markets here in Randolph, you're going to find an abundance of different green teas available for your consumption, which are highly beneficial as well. And they are also rich in antioxidants, just like the black tea. And then we have white tea. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with white tea. The two most popular kinds of white tea are the silver needle and the white peony. And those are good for brain boosting effects. They're good for cancer patients. If you're someone that has an unfortunate diagnosis of cancer, white tea is very beneficial when you're undergoing certain treatments for cancer, such as radiation and chemotherapy. It's high in antioxidants. It reduces anxiety and stress, which a lot of people today definitely deal with. So you might want to incorporate white tea into your diet as well. It's also very low in caffeine, which is nice. Yes.
So a quick question. I know that you mentioned all the health benefits. So I feel like in America we may dilute those health benefits with like sugar and milk and whatever have you.
That's a very
in the other countries, like I feel like China is like a very like tea-driven country.
Very much.
Do they have it plain, or
a lot of people do have it plain. Even myself sometimes. Even my daughter, she will not have it with anything, just the tea, no sugar, no milk, or anything like that. And that's a very valid point that you make, because it helps you to better get the full effect of the herb when you do not add anything to it. And that's one thing that you really want to do. In terms of tea blending, it's actually good to know each individual herb that's in the blend, even before you consume that blend. So if you have a blend with chamomile and lavender and ginger and cinnamon, you actually should try to consume those herbs individually before you start making your own blends, just so you can see how those different constituents affect the body, how they make you feel, and if you like the flavor of them or not, so you can know if you want to add more of them to your blends or not. So that's a very, very good point. I actually forgot sweeteners today, so you guys might be forced to have to try. I had agave and brown sugar, and I was rushing after work, and I forgot them on my dining room table. So I actually just asked my daughter to ask Shannon if she had sugar for you guys, because I usually do not even put a lot of sugar in my teas, if any at all. So they were making that point. Honey, I like honey in my tea as well, and honey is a powerful antioxidant and antiviral, so that's excellent to add to your teas, in my opinion. Organic honey, of course. You don't want the processed high fructose corn syrup honey that's
all right, that's great, thank you.
flooding our market. So the two most popular white teas are the silver needle and the white peony teas, but there are several different species of all of the teas that I've already mentioned. There's hundreds of different black tea species, green tea species, and white tea as well. And the last one that we're going to mention is the oolong tea, which is also a very popular tea in both Asian and African cultures. And they like the oolong tea actually because of the health benefits. It's also a vasoconstrictor, which is good for someone that's suffering from high blood pressure. So that's something that you also want to incorporate into your lifestyle, is definitely oolong tea if you're someone that's suffering with circulation or heart issues, which a lot of diabetics and people with high blood pressure unfortunately do suffer from. So those are the most popular teas. So now I just have a brief little statement or definition, if you will, about tea. Can I have a volunteer just to read that for us today? You know about everything here.
I can't volunteer.
I can volunteer.
Okay, thank you.
By definition, herbal tea alchemy and formulation is the synergistic brewing and blending of different herbal elements that work together to increase the nutritional components of the herbs being used. This is the basic concept of alchemy and the art of transforming one substance into another. Creating your own herbal tea formulation can be a very fun and instinctual process, but does require a bit of studying and practice, as well as an intimate relationship with the herbs you are using.
Thank you very much. What's your name?
Arrow.
Thank you, Emma. So, I just wanted you guys to kind of ponder on that statement for a little bit. Because when you do make a cup of tea, you become an alchemist. You're transforming one substance into another. And not only are you transforming one substance to another, you're gaining health benefits when you do make your own cup of tea, when you make your own herbal blend. I'm not talking about the, processed teas loaded with additives and processed chemicals that are available on our grocery store shelves. I'm not knocking, these different teas. There are some that are organic and that do use high quality herbs, but unfortunately a lot of them do not. So I do definitely recommend that you study the herbs that you're consuming. I had a good friend tell me one time that every herb, just like every pharmaceutical drug, can be both a cure and a poison. So if you're consuming too much of one herb that is not working cohesively with your biochemical makeup, you can actually do more harm to your system than good. And I just want everybody to be aware of that. I 100% trust in the medicinal properties of the herbs and the healing properties of the herbs, but I also do know that it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. Not every herb that works for my ailment is going to work for your condition or your ailment. So I just want everybody to kind of be aware of that as we move forward here. So we have a few terms here that are very popular in herbalism and in the tea world. And I will just briefly go over some of them. We don't need to know all of them. Not all of them pertain to herbal blending. But some of them are important when you are beginning to learn how to blend your own teas. So the first one we have on the list is an adaptogen. And here, the definition for adaptogen is that it aids the body in adapting to stress and supports healthy function. So any type of herb that's an adaptogen is going to promote homeostasis in the body. And if you're not aware of what that is, homeostasis is just the body's way of maintaining a healthy state of being. The body is constantly working to make sure that it remains healthy. And we're doing a lot of things to not make it healthy, especially in today's society. In the environment that we live in, we're consuming a lot of processed foods. We're highly stressed. We're working full-time jobs, sometimes 2-3 jobs. So we're suffering with a lot of mental illness. We're suffering with a lot of autoimmune disease. And any type of herb that's an adaptogen is going to help your body get back to that homeostasis level, which is very important when you're learning to blend your teas, especially for medicinal purposes. So that's an adaptogen. And we'll get more into adaptogens as we move along. Aerial parts, that's pretty self-explanatory. So now we have analgesic. Any analgesic herb is going to be a pain relieving herb. And there are actually a lot of herbs that work really well, even just on their own, not being blended with other herbs to reduce pain in their body. One off the top of my mind that I can tell you about is eucalyptus. Eucalyptus you can use as an essential oil, you can use it as a tea, but that is a pain relieving herb. Another one is horsetail herb. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with horsetail herb. That's also a pain relieving herb that some people can use in place of aspirin or ibuprofen if you have a headache or menstrual cramps. It's known to reduce pain in the body, so just keep that in mind. I sometimes suffer from back pain with the work that I do, and I literally will make a hot compress with eucalyptus oil and put it on my back, and it literally relieves the pain. Or I'll use eucalyptus essential oil, yes.
Is chamomile an analgesic?
It does have analgesic properties, it definitely does. It has calming properties, which calms the nervous system, which is also an analgesic, so absolutely chamomile is one. And I have a list of herbs in the handout, and each herb that's listed in the handout, I have the properties listed there as well, so you'll know what type of herb has these particular
I don't think
properties.
so.
It's not there? Oh, I have it.
We can email it.
Okay, that's fine, no problem. You can email it. It's not in the handout. I thought it was, maybe not, sorry. So then we have herbs that are, okay, please, in the vegetable. Then we have herbs that are antibacterial. Right off the bat, I can tell you that cinnamon is an antibacterial, which is a very popular spice that we use very often in tea blends and to bake with. But it can definitely be added to your tea. Sometimes if I'm having a cup of tea, I'll just sprinkle some powdered cinnamon in my tea, and it definitely does have antibacterial effects. Anti-emetic herbs are going to be herbs that reduce or relieve nausea. So a lot of pregnant women will seek out anti-emetic herbs, or people just that are on certain medications that have them not feeling very well. They will seek out those herbs that are anti-emetic. Anti-inflammatory, those are herbs that reduce inflammation, which will also in turn help with pain and many other ailments as well, because a lot of herbalists believe, and naturopathic doctors believe, that the root cause of dis-ease in the body is caused by inflammation. That could be inflammation in your lung, inflammation in your brain, your pancreas, all our different organs, our joints can become inflamed, and a lot of naturopathic healers believe that the root cause of all of that is inflammation at its root. And when you deal with the inflammation, you start to feel better, you start to heal, your body starts to heal. Then we have bitter herbs, that's pretty self-explanatory. Carminative herbs, those are the herbs that are going to reduce bloating and gas. Compress, I explained a little bit about compress by explaining how I use the eucalyptus compress to relieve pain for my back. Now, decoction is a term that we use in herbalism for preparing certain herbs. So there are certain herbs that are very rooty in nature. Astragalus is one, ginger, turmeric. So those herbs, you're going to prepare them a little bit differently than you would another herb like chamomile or rose petals. Those herbs, you actually want to boil them for a longer period of time to draw out the medicinal properties in those herbs and the flavor as well. So that's a decoction, and we'll get more into that as well. So a demulcent is an herb that's going to coat and soothe the mucous membranes in the body. So aloe vera, you could just tell by the texture of aloe vera that it's a mucusy type of herb. It's mucilaginous in nature. An emollient is going to be an herb that softens or soothes the skin. Aloe is also an emollient, which is why it's used in hair and skin products, because it's going to soften your hair, your nails, and your skin. Gargle, we don't really need to get into, but it is the art of removing the leaves from the stems of the tree. Or glyceride is a sweet solvent which is naturally produced by the body, but can be bought for use in herbal preparations. So glyceride, you can actually make an herbal tincture with glycerate. You can soak your herbs in glycerate for a week or two, and the glycerate is going to draw out the medicinal properties of those herbs. And then you can apply that glycerite to your skin, to your hair. It's good for wounds, for healing, depending on the type of herbs that you're using and what you're wishing to accomplish by using that particular tincture. So infusion, that's pretty much what most of us do when we are making a cup of tea. A lot of us will boil some water, right, and pour it over a tea bag. You can do the same thing with loose leaf herbs. You can put them in a pot and pour hot boiling water over those herbs and leave it to steep for, 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the herb, and you've just made an infusion right there. Maceration is the art of herbal extraction, whereby the herbs are left for 4 to 6 weeks in a sealed jar with alcohol or oil and used as with oil or alcohol used as the menstruum. You can also macerate using honey. I actually just macerated raw red onion in different herbs, thyme and basil, to use as a cough medicine for my children instead of buying the store-bought medicines that are loaded with chemicals. So that's a maceration. And then the menstruum is the extraction solvent for herbal constituents: water, oil, vinegar, alcohol, glycerite, and like I mentioned before, you can use honey as well. Mucilage is a gooey type of plant material. For example, marshmallow root. Aloe vera is another one that I mentioned before. And those herbs are good for skin wounds. They promote healing, soft hair and skin and nails. They also work really well with soothing internal issues like ulcers. It promotes healing of internal bleeding and things of that nature. So any herb that's mucilage is going to be good for soothing and healing. A nervine is a herb that restores the nerves. So if you're someone that suffers from nerve damage, herbs that have nervine properties are definitely herbs that you want to start to incorporate. A poultice is a herbal preparation applied locally to alleviate pain or swelling that can be placed on burns, scars, cuts, and things of that nature. Salves as well. Tincture we talked a little bit about already, which is a liquid herbal preparation made by soaking herbs in water or alcohol, which will draw out the constituents and the properties of those herbs. So we're getting into a little bit of how we formulate teas and how teas are made now. So I tend to follow this formula here that you guys can see. And this to me gives you a very good quality tea blend when you follow this particular guideline. It's actually very, very simple. And we'll break it down just a little bit more. So you may not have this printed in your printout, so I'll just go over it briefly. But on that triangle, we have, on this formulation triangle, we have primary herbs used to make our blends, supporting herbs, and activating herbs. So primary herbs, these are the herbs that are going to work on what you're trying to focus on for your health if you're trying to create a tea blend. Some people just want to create tea blends just for taste or flavor, and that's fine too. But I just wanted to kind of give you guys the health benefits that go along with creating this tea blend today, which is why I am giving you this information. So the primary herbs in the formulation triangle are the herbs that you want to use to focus on whatever may be ailing you. So if you're someone that suffers from diabetes or high blood pressure, someone that's going through cancer, and you want to make a tea blend that can help alleviate some of the symptoms that they're having. The primary herbs are going to be the herbs that target your specific ailment, your specific problem, okay? So, for instance, let's just say someone has diabetes. and you want to make a tea blend for them that's going to be beneficial to helping them to reduce their sugars. You're going to make a tea blend that has 70 to 80% of herbs that are known for helping alleviate symptoms of diabetes. Herbs that are known to reduce high sugar in the body. And those herbs can be lemongrass, it can be ginger, it can be, there's a lot of different herbs. Peppermint can be used, hibiscus can be used. That can also be used to reduce sugars as well, high blood pressure as well. Supportive herbs are the herbs that are going to nourish and help build the areas that you're trying to heal. And they're going to work with the primary herbs, okay? So anytime you are making a tea blend, that you want 20%, 15 to 20% of the herbs in that blend to be supportive herbs that are going to help bring out the healing properties of the primary herbs. Now, the activating herbs are going to be herbs that kind of boost up both the primary and the supporting herbs, if that makes sense. And they also are powerhouse herbs that are packed with antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, antivirals. They're going to be your more rooty herbs, your adaptogen herbs that we talked about earlier. Those are going to be the activating herbs. And they work really hard for your body. They also work really hard with the other herbs in your tea blend. So you always want to try to incorporate in your blend at least 2 of these areas: supportive herbs, primary herbs, or primary herbs and activating herbs. At least 2, if not 3 of these in the formula you want to try to incorporate into your tea blend. If you use all 3, it's even better, but at least 2 is what I would recommend. So we kind of talked about infusions and decoctions already. And so for infusions, which is also called a tisane, you, like I mentioned before, want to pour boiling water over your herbs to draw out the constituents. Sometimes I only boil them if I'm in a rush for 3 minutes or so. I'll put it on and I'll put my boiling water on, boil my water, pour it onto my tea bag or onto my herbal blend, and leave it for 5 minutes and let it steep when I'm on the go heading to work. Enjoy it that way, but you can steep it even longer if you need to. And so for an infusion, that's what you want to do. You do want to make sure that you cover securely with the lid, whether it's a pot or a teacup infuser. You just want to make sure that the lid is secure to make sure that all of the constituents stay within your tea. There's a lot of essential oils that are released when you're making tea. You don't want any of those oils to escape. You want to try to get, as much of the medicinal properties out of your infusion as possible. All right, and so we talked about infusions, and I like the solar infusion piece that I put at the bottom. You can also infuse your herbs using the sun, by, on a hot summer day. If you want to make an iced tea, you can put your herbs literally in some water and put it out in the sun for a little bit, and that's an infusion right there. The sun is actually a very good infuser. And then we have decoctions. So decoctions are going to be your more rooty herbs, and like I was telling you before, you need to boil those a little bit longer to draw out the constituents of that particular herb. All right, so that is decoctions. And same thing when you're decocting, you want to make sure you have a tight lid to keep the nutrients inside. So some of the herbs that we have here today for you guys to try, I can go over some of them briefly with you just so you can get an idea of which herbs you want to use to create your tea blends. So, the first one on my list is astragalus. Is anybody familiar with astragalus? Does anybody use astragalus at all? You never heard of astragalus? Nobody?
I've heard of it, never had.
You never had astragalus? Okay. So, astragalus is a rooty herb. All right, you want to just show them? I kind of want you guys to see the herb that we're talking about, smell the herb, and just get a little bit familiar with the herb. So, astragalus is right here. So I'm just walking around and letting everyone smell, don't drop it, let everyone smell what the herb is. I just want you to kind of familiarize yourself with different herbs. And this is why I didn't bring black tea or oolong tea or white tea, because I feel like you guys are already pretty much, yeah, my daughter has one too. She's familiar with these herbs. Yep. And so astragalus is an adaptogen. Does anybody remember what an adaptogen is? Does anybody remember what an adaptogen is? That was the first one I told you guys about, the adaptogen.
Aids the body in adapting.
Correct. Yes, and to maintain homeostasis of the body. So astragalus is very good for just overall health. It's packed with minerals and nutrients that work with the cells in your body to maintain homeostasis, which is very important. I just want to note for you guys to understand too that each herb, each of the herbs that we have here today and many others that I don't have here today have been researched by scientists, by doctors, and have been proven to have these benefits that I'm discussing with you today. You can read peer-reviewed journals by physicians and scientists that have studied these herbs. So it's not just my opinion. This information is out there. If you have time to look up some of the benefits, some of the healing properties of the herbs, I definitely suggest you do take the time to do that. Modern medicine has come a long way, and we should be very grateful, but I also do believe that nature has given us everything that we need to maintain a healthy life. Not everybody would agree with me, but that's okay. All right, so astragalus is an adaptogen, like I mentioned before, helps protect the body from physical, mental, or emotional stress. It's an energy tonic, so you can make a tonic out of it. By making a tonic, we discussed it a little bit earlier, you can macerate that in a different menstruum, like glycerin, honey. Do you remember we mentioned that before? To make a tonic with astragalus that you can take as an energy shot or as an immune booster once a week, once every couple of days, just to maintain a healthy body. It says here too, it's an immune booster, antiviral, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, diuretic properties, which means it's going to flush your kidneys out. If you're someone that has high blood pressure or diabetes, you really want to maintain the health of your kidneys, and astragalus root is going to help you do that. And you can make a tea with it and just have it by itself as well. But because it's one of those, as you can see, it's one of those more rooty herbs, that's one of the ones that you're going to need to boil a little bit longer to draw out the properties. And if you don't have time to boil it for a long length of time, you can boil it, say, today for 10 minutes and drink that tea, and then you can boil that same herb again tomorrow, and it's still going to have more medicinal properties in it because you didn't boil it for a very long time. You didn't decoct it for a very long time.
Can I ask a question? When you say boil it, we're boiling it
in water.
like,
In a pan, you mean?
like, is it going in like, you know, like a tea
You, by all means, you can put it in, I actually gave you guys some infusers today in your bag. You can use an infuser and boil it.
Okay.
But a lot of times I just throw my herbs in a ceramic pot and boil them that way and strain it off with a strainer,
Okay.
with a mesh strainer.
So is it like a ratio of how much you're putting in versus the amount of water?
Yes,
Okay.
with every herb. You should definitely try to do research on how much water to the herb you should be using.
Okay.
Absolutely. And usually for the general kind of thought for herb is to boil 1 teaspoon, depending on the herb, or 1 tablespoon of the herb with 8 to 12 ounces of water. That's usually the rule of thumb,
Okay.
but there are variations.
Okay.
So I always recommend people that are not familiar with certain herbs to definitely do your research before you start dealing with the herbs, especially if you're someone that has a particular ailment and you're on certain medications. You always want to educate yourself about the herbs and the side effects of the herbs, and even discuss it with your physician too. Because like I was saying before, not every herb is for everyone. So you do have to be mindful of that.
And then, so if you're mixing multiples together,
Yes.
is it the same kind of thing that it's still either a tablespoon or a teaspoon?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. So I create custom tea blends for my business, and pretty much on all of my tea blends, I recommend that you use like I said, 1 teaspoon to 1 tablespoon of that herb to 8 to 12 ounces of water.
Okay.
And each of the tea bags that I make for my business all have a little bit over a tablespoon of the blend in that tea bag, but I recommend you use 12 to 16 ounces of boiling water. So the more herb you use, the more water you're going to use.
Okay.
Excuse me, can the herbs be reused?
Absolutely, yeah. Mhm.
How many?
I will use our herbs 2 to 3 times, I would say. That's usually the general rule of thumb. And when I was going through my herbalism course with Asian Academy of Medicine, that was the recommendation that they used as well. And many herbalists use that same recommendation, that you can reuse your herbs 2 to 3 days, depending on the herb. So, absolutely. So that is astragalus. And everyone got a chance to smell it. It kind of has a earthy smell to it. You might think that it doesn't taste good, but when you add it to other blends, when you add it to other herbs and add spices like ginger, turmeric, cinnamon, mint, things of that nature, it enhances the flavor of it. So don't be discouraged by the smell. Don't knock it until you try it. So basil is our next herb, and we have holy basil. Ari, would you just let everybody?
Is it in one of the?
Nope, it's in one of the bags. I already had it packaged up, so I just left them there. So holy basil is another adaptogen type of herb. It's also anti-inflammatory, it's an antioxidant, it's antibacterial, antispasmodic, and it's a laxative, so you want to be careful with basil. But if you're someone that suffers with constipation, basil can be can help you to alleviate the symptoms of constipation. It's also a pain reliever too, which is nice.
She smells decent.
Doesn't it smell nice?
Yeah,
I would
that's
say.
another thing that wasn't.
Is it basil? Like,
This is, so there are, with every herb, there are many species of the herb. So this particular herb is holy basil.
okay.
Okay, and this one is sourced in India. And it's a very popular herb in Chinese and Indian tea blends. I'll just let you guys pass that around and take a little whiff of the basil.
What kind of basil is that?
That's holy basil. It's also called tulsi. It's also called tulsi, but this particular one is holy basil. And this one is sourced in India. And I get most of my herbs from vendors that source from the climate and area in which the herbs are best known for. So I'm not going to get, chamomile from South America, say, because it thrives in Africa and Egypt. So I try to find vendors that grow and sell the herbs in that particular climate where they're best known for thriving. So now we have cardamom. I'm sure many of you are familiar with cardamom, right? What have you used cardamom for mostly? Have you ever used it in a tea? Have you ever
I
baked
had it in
it?
a cocktail.
You've had it in a cocktail. That's interesting. An herbal cocktail. I really like that.
Some baked goods.
Yeah, some baked goods have it, absolutely. So cardamom is also an analgesic, which is again, does anyone remember what an analgesic is? I mentioned it before.
Reduces or relieves pain.
Yes, exactly. So a lot of herbalists will recommend using cardamom for headaches. A lot of women will use them for menstrual cramps because it's also antispasmodic. It's aromatic, as many of you have already smelled. A digestive aid, it has warming effects, so they'll use cardamom also to make chai. Has anyone ever had
Oh,
chai?
that's where.
So that's a very, if you're having chai and it doesn't have cardamom, that's not a chai. So that's a very popular ingredient in chai. And it's also carminative, which is, does anyone remember what carminative is? That's the ones that are going to help you relieve bloating and gas. So if it's antispasmodic and analgesic and carminative, that's really good for someone that has a bad menstrual cycle. Because as many of you women know, that those are the main things that bother you when you're on the cycle. And even women that are going through menopause. I would like to note that not all of these herbs are best to be consumed when you're pregnant or breastfeeding. You do want to check with your physician if you're going to start consuming. If you're just having a cup of tea here and there, I wouldn't worry about it. But if you're looking for the health benefits of it, and you're someone that is pregnant or immunocompromised even, I would check with your physician because a lot of the medicines can interact negatively with the herbs. So if you're on blood pressure medication to lower your blood pressure, you want to be careful using certain herbs that lower your blood pressure so that they don't lower them too low. My train of thought though is that if you're using the herbs and you're using a pharmaceutical medication and it's lowering your blood pressure and you have high blood pressure, I would ask to reduce the pharmaceutical process in the lab, unnatural thing, and take more of the natural thing, but that's my train of thought. Same thing with blood sugar and other ailments. And remind me, I have a little story to tell you of my daughter and the herbs when we're done in the healing properties of the herbs, what they did for her. Chamomile. Is next, and I think someone over here had mentioned chamomile. So chamomile is an analgesic again, so it's going to reduce pain, anti-inflammatory, antidepressant, calms the nervous system, pain reliever, digestive aid, and relieves stress and anxiety, which is why chamomile is a very popular tea blend because it's very calming, it's very relaxing. Especially when mixed with other calming herbs like lavender and hibiscus. So not only does it have all of these medicinal properties, but it can also help to just calm you down after a long day or if you're having a sleepless night. And I'm not sure why I don't have adaptogen here because that's definitely adaptogenic in nature. Anything that calms you or relaxes you is going to help maintain overall homeostasis, so I'm not sure why I left that out there. Cinnamon I know everybody here has had cinnamon, and you're familiar with cinnamon. You may even know of some of the
Or not.
You can, because this is a high quality organic cinnamon, so you might smell the difference from the
Yeah,
stuff
the
that you're
powder.
buying at Stop and Shop, the powder. It has
Oh, wow.
a much stronger smell when you buy organic cut and sifted than just the stuff that's been highly processed as powder. And cinnamon, right off back, I can tell you, is going to help to reduce blood sugar. The nutrients in cinnamon work to promote healing of the pancreas and the endocrine system, which is major. And it's also a pain reliever, an astringent, so it's actually used in some hair, skin, and nail products. It's antimicrobial, which is good for wound healing, cuts and things of that nature. It's antifungal, it's an antioxidant, so it's going to help the cells in your body that work to remove damaging cells or cancerous cells, which is why it's actually being used in cancer treatments now. You can look this up. There's peer-reviewed journals on how cinnamon is helping people with cancer, which is huge. It reduces blood sugar, like I said before, and blood pressure. It's a prebiotic, so it's going to improve digestion as well. Doesn't it smell amazing? I love that. And then we have echinacea. Has anyone here used echinacea before? Are you familiar? You like echinacea, Shannon? That's awesome. Echinacea is also one of those powerhouse herbs that I really do suggest you look up because it is making huge waves in the medical industry. They're starting to incorporate echinacea more into many different treatments for cancer. It's been shown to help shrink tumors. Look up echinacea and the powerful benefits. I've listed some of them here today, but there's so much research on all of these herbs, it's impossible for me to give you all of them. We would need a workshop just on the breakdown of each herb and the minerals and the nutrients in the herbs and what they do for the body and how they help to regenerate damaged cells, which is amazing. So echinacea is an antioxidant, it boosts the immune system, lowers blood sugar, reduces anxiety. So you definitely want to look into echinacea. It's an anti-inflammatory, protects against cancer. Again, you might not like the smell. And this is also one of those herbs that are more rooty in nature, so it needs to be decocted longer to draw out the properties in the herbs, in the echinacea. Now, fever grass. I know many of you must be familiar with fever grass, right? Lemongrass. It's more, I'm sorry, that's what we call it in Jamaica. I'm sorry. I meant to put lemongrass there. Fever grass, lemongrass. Is also an analgesic, antibacterial, astringent, balances and calms your mood. It's very warming. Has anyone ever had a cup of lemongrass tea?
Yes.
You have? Do you agree that it's kind of relaxing and calming? It has a nice flavor to it. And it's also good to improve your blood sugar levels as well. We actually consume a lot of fever grass in my home, and I've been drinking that since as far back as I can remember. That was one of the ones my great-grandmother would always give to me. My daughter loves fever grass. My 4-year-old son asks for his fever grass tea. So that's another one that I love that I brought with us today. Now, I know everyone here definitely knows ginger. Has anyone consumed ginger as a tea? Very well. Do you boil your own ginger, or do you just buy the tea bag?
Cocktail.
No, I take the ginger and I try
You boil it? I love it.
Yeah,
And now, how do you just slice it up, or do you pound it?
We take like the grater, like
Oh, you
like
grater
the-
it, even
the
better.
garlic.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
we take the grater
So you get
and
it
put it
really,
in there.
really fine.
It's very like calming. It's kind of like
It gives you that
Mellows you
warming
out.
feeling
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
It's warming. It's a pain reliever too.
No, but then I put it through like a strainer, so that way I don't
Is
get
it
like
good
the.
for
Yeah.
stomach too?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah, relieves congestion, aids in digestion. Time? Oh my God, already? It didn't even make All right, I'll wrap it up. All right, so did I give you guys the herbs in the handout?
No.
I didn't? I'll have to email it to you guys.
We can get, I will get it to you.
I need everyone's email so I can, because there's a lot of herbs. I wanted to go over all the herbs I had with me today so that you could have a better idea when you're creating your blend of the different herbs that you were going to use to do that. But we're running out of time and that was really quick. I didn't realize. Okay, we can do one or two things. I can put up the different herbs so that you can see and then you can choose what herbs you want to use. And I do recommend you use the herbal blend formulation triangle that I showed you. Just because you don't want too strong or too bitter of a herb in your blend. And those rootier herbs are going to be very strong and bitter, so they're going to have a very strong flavor. So you don't want to lose a lot of that. Those are going to be your catalyst herbs that we discussed in the triangle. I do have some recipes here that I was going to demonstrate for you, but I think we're running out of time to do that. So because I gave you the jars and the satchels, I really want you to take something with you today. So I can either give you a recipe to try that I use already, or you can try to create something on your own with the herbs that I have here today. Completely up to you guys.
Can we hear about your recipe first?
Yeah, so I have a few of them, and this is, I'll just tell you real quick, this is how I usually formulate my blends for healing. For taste, completely different, but for healing, this is what I do. I write down what is it I'm trying to accomplish, what the needs are, determine the formula, and then it's just as simple as that. You mix your blend. So, overall health tea, very safe for people of all ages, young and old, is going to be oat straw, which I didn't get a chance to go over and I wanted you guys to smell, nettle, horsetail, peppermint, and cinnamon. That's one of the blends that I have here for you today. I'll just go over all three of them. A winter herbal blend, which is nice on a cold winter day. Nettle, the holy basil, mint, astragalus, licorice, echinacea, and ginger. This is a powerhouse herb too. Not only is it tasty and good for the winter cold months, it's filled with nutrients that are going to provide some sort of healing to the body as well, especially if consumed a little bit more frequently. And you don't have to use all of the herbs listed in the winter tea blend. As you can see, I put nettle or basil or mint for the 5 parts. You don't want to use all 3. And then astragalus or licorice or echinacea 2 parts. So you're going to choose one of the 5 parts, one of the 2 parts, and then the ginger is going to be the 1 part. And then relax time tea. We have lemon balm, chamomile, rose petals, and ginger. And all of these herbs are going to... You want to do the first one? Sure.
Yeah.
I can email it to you guys too. I can actually email the entire